Hello everyone, welcome to the class. Good morning. So today our chapter is about rebels in Raj, which is your chapter 11th in class 12th history. That's what we will be talking about today. Okay. So a lot of you have asked me about this chapter कि मैम ये कैसे होगा, क्या होगा. काफ़ी लोगों को काफ़ी बच्चों को डाउट भी था इस चैप्टर में. सो आई एम पुटिंग अप दिस चैप्टर. ऑल राइट, अगर कोई भी डाउट हो, आपको कुछ ना समझ में आए, इफ देयर समथिंग यू वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड, यू कैन ऑलवेज पुट अप अ क्वेश्चन एंड आई विल डेफिनेटली रिप्लाई. ठीक है, तो विदाउट एनी फर्दर अडू हम लोग चैप्टर शुरू करते हैं. ओके तो जैसा कि नाउ दिस चैप्टर इज़ अबाउट द रिवोल्ट ऑफ 1857. ठीक है, जो 1857 में फर्स्ट वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस और सीपॉय म्यूटनी और सीपॉय रेबेलियन एज इट इज़ कॉल्ड बाय डिफरेंट नेम्स हैपेंड. ओके, नाउ वी ऑल नो दैट व्हाट हैपेंड बिफोर दिस, है ना. इससे पहले क्या हुआ था हम सब जानते हैं. ठीक है, द परमानेंट सेटलमेंट हैड कम इन विद द डेक्कन राइट्स कमीशन एंड ऑल ऑफ दोज थिंग्स व्हिच हैड हैपेंड. द ब्रिटिशर्स आर ट्राइंग टू इंक्रीज देयर रेवेन्यू बेस एट द कॉस्ट ऑफ द पीपल. ठीक है, in Awadh, in fact, they had increased the revenue from 30 to 70%. Imagine earning 100 rupees and giving 70 rupees away to the government and not getting anything in return. All right, the peasants have been driven towards poverty. The zamindars, the landlords, the talukdars, all of them have been disbanded, and everything is now under the British control. People are obviously not at all happy with whatever is happening. Okay, all of that combined with lots of rumors, religious persecutions, changes in the policies, administration, education, and the most importantly the whatever happened with Jhansi, Satara, इन सब में जो चीज़ें हुई थी उन सबको मिला करके we see the revolt of 1857 happening, and for us it's the obviously the first war of independence. हमारे लिए वो पहला war of independence है. Alright, so let us understand how the mutinies exactly began. वो शुरू कैसे होती थी. ठीक है, so every action has a planned action. It's a very planned action. So it was a sepoy mutiny. तो ऐसा नहीं था कि it was just haywire कि कोई कहीं से भी किसी से बंदूक उठा ली या किसी से तलवार उठा दी, किसी ब्रिटिशर को मार दिया. It was not like that. It was definitely very well planned. Okay, so the sepoys would usually begin their action with a signal. Now a signal would be an evening gun or the sounding of the bugle or the bigul as it is called in Hindi. ठीक है, तो this was their signal to start the revolt कि हाँ भाई अब शुरू करना है. Okay, now first of all they did something. They seized the bell of arms or plundered the treasury. Now why do you think the next action that after sounding the signal, the next action they took was to seize the bell of arms? उसके पीछे एक रीज़न है. रीज़न वॉज दैट अगर हम बेल ऑफ आर्म्स इज़ द प्लेस वे ऑल द आर्म्स एंड एम्यूनिशंस ऑफ द ब्रिटिशर्स वर केप्ट. ठीक है, तो अब अगर हम आर्म्स एंड एम्यूनिशंस उनका ले लेंगे, इफ वी प्लंडर दैट, ऑब्वियसली दे विल बी लेफ्ट विथ नथिंग टू फाइट बैक. ठीक है, सो इट मेक्स इट ईजी फॉर देम टू विन. Fine. Next is they plundered the treasury. Treasury in the sense where all the money is kept. Alright. Now if you've plundered their bell of arms and you've plundered their treasury, you're basically crippling the Britishers to even get more. ठीक है, अगर उनके पास पैसे होंगे हो सकता है वो आर्म्स एंड एम्यूनिशंस कहीं और से ले आए और समथिंग लाइक दैट. बट इफ दे डोंट हैव मनी एंड इफ दे डोंट हैव एनी आर्म्स एंड एम्यूनिशंस, you're basically crippling their wish, you're basically crippling their ability to fight back. ठीक है. After this, they would attack all the government buildings like jails, treasury, telegraph office, record rooms, bungalows, burning all the records. Alright, so now let me tell you why the jail. Okay, now jail was a place where they would be keeping political prisoners. Okay, political prisoners को रखते थे, उन लोगों को रखते थे जिन लोगों ने actually कुछ गलत नहीं किया है. Fine, just like the French Revolution, they stormed the Bastille because that was the source of power for the government. That's what happened here also. Okay, treasury I've already told you, telegraph office ताकि वो एक दूसरे से communicate ना कर सके. ठीक है, bungalows because they would want to burn all the records which were there, all the revenue records कि कितने revenue collect करना है, all of that was burnt. अगर record नहीं रहेगा तो फिर वो revenue कैसे collect करेंगे. Okay, so everything that was associated with the white man became a signal of target. ठीक है, and proclamations to fight in this war was put up in Hindu, it was put up in Urdu, Persian and Hindi, and it basically called upon both the populations, both Hindus and Muslims, to exterminate these Firangis, to exterminate these Britishers, all right. And also, want to tell you one thing, that Britishers have always tried to divide the Hindus and the Muslims, okay. So that is why the population made sure that these proclamations were issued in Hindu, Persian, and Urdu and Hindi, so that everyone, all right, so that both the population, both Hindus and Muslims, would come together and fight for this, okay. So this is how the rebellion began. Now, till this time, we're talking about the Sepoy mutiny, when only the Sepoys were a part of the mutiny. Okay. इसके बाद क्या हो रहा है? When ordinary people became, started joining the revolt, obviously the target of the revolt widened. ठीक है? All right. So जो major towns है जैसे लखनऊ, कानपुर, रायबरेली and all these places, money lenders and rich also became objects of wrath because they were seen as allies of the Britishers and also oppressors. Okay, उनको oppressor माना जाता था. If you remember, आपने वो section नहीं पढ़ा है, but I'm just telling you, money lenders बहुत ही चालाक होते थे, ठीक है. वो कभी कभी क्या करते थे, because obviously the peasants were not educated, they would make them sign any document, उस पर अंगूठा लगवा लेते थे, ठीक है. And there's an instance where for a principal amount of 100 rupees, they've charged an interest of 2000 rupees from the peasants, ठीक है. Imagine, उनको money lenders को भी पैसे देने हैं, and at the same time they have to give the money, they have to pay so much of revenue also, ठीक है. इसीलिए this is the reason that these people became targets of the peasants. Okay. Now, in most of the places, their houses were looted and destroyed, and this became a source. मतलब क्यों loot कर रहे थे, क्यों destroy कर रहे थे? Because they wanted to get rid of all the records that they had, the revenue records, कि कितने पैसे collect करने, किससे लेने. जब records नहीं होगा तो तुम कहाँ से collect करोगे? Point being that, ठीक है? So this is what they were doing. All right. Now, see, if it is a planned revolt, obviously there has to be some lines of communication. Okay, so let us see what instances do we have to prove that yes, they were communicating. There was lines of communication. एक दूसरे से communicate कर रहे थे. That was definitely something there. All right. Now, the reason for similarity, now the pattern of revolt in different places, sometimes very far off places also, was particularly very well planned. Okay? There was planning and there was coordination that obviously suggests that there was communication between the sepoy lines of various cantonments. So different cantonments are different cant areas, are different sepoy areas हैं, उनके बीच में definitely communication रहा होगा. Otherwise it could not have been so well planned. ठीक है, अदरवाइज इतना वेल प्लान हो ही नहीं सकता है. ओके, सो आफ्टर द 7th hour, the irregular cavalry had refused to bite into new cartridges. In early May, they wrote to the 48th Native Infantry that they have acted for faith and awaited the 48th order. ठीक है, 7th hour irregular cavalry. Now ये जितने भी हैं बचे cavalry और जो 7th hour irregular cavalry, 48th Native Infantry, these are all regiments. ठीक है, ये जो हमारा आर्मी रेजिमेंट्स होता है ना, ये वो है. ठीक है, सो रेजिमेंट्स इन द सेंस जैसे हम लोग, हमारा राजपूत रेजिमेंट है, गुरखा रेजिमेंट है, ठीक है, वी हैव द जाट रेजिमेंट, ऑलराइट, लाइक दैट, दीज आर द रेजिमेंट्स. ठीक है, तो अवध इरेगुलर कैवलरी ने, कैवलरी इज बेसिकली हॉर्समैन, तो उन्होंने दे रिफ्यूज टू बाइट इनटू द न्यू कार्टेजेस, the new Enfield rifle cartridges, and they wrote to the 48th Native Infantry कि हमने अपने धर्म के लिए एक्ट किया है, अब आप बताइए कि हमें क्या करना चाहिए, what should we do next. ठीक है, all right. Now, sepoys or the emissaries. Now, sepoys obviously, and the emissaries, people who were working with them, they would move from one station to another station. ठीक है, and they would be talking and planning about the rebellion. Okay. सो एक इंसिडेंट है जो हमें बताता है कि हाउ इट केम टू बी सो ऑर्गेनाइज्ड. फाइन. सो कैप्टन हेरेसी जो है, ही इज ऑफ द अवध मिलिट्री पुलिस. ओके, नाउ ही वाज गिवन प्रोटेक्शन बाय द इंडियन सबऑर्डिनेट्स ड्यूरिंग द म्यूटनी. ठीक है, तो जो उसके इंडियन सबऑर्डिनेट्स थे, जो उसके अंदर काम करते होंगे, अवध मिलिट्री पुलिस के अंडर काम करते होंगे, कैप्टन हेरेसी के अंडर काम करते होंगे. ठीक है, उन्होंने उसको प्रोटेक्शन दी. ठीक है. नाउ द 41st नेटिव इन्फेंट्री, जो कि इट वाज स्टेशन एट द सेम प्लेस, उन्होंने कहा कि सिंस हमने अपने सारे वाइट ऑफिसर्स को मार दिया है, कैप्टन हेरेसी शुड ऑल्सो बी किल्ड और ही शुड बी डिलीवर्ड एज अ प्रिजनर टू द 41st. ठीक है, ऑलराइट, मिलिट्री पुलिस, अवध मिलिट्री पुलिस ने कहा कि अब दोनों में से कोई काम नहीं करेंगे, एंड अ नाइटली पंचायत वाज कंपोज्ड ताकि ये जो प्रॉब्लम है ये सॉल्व हो सके, ठीक है. चार्ल्स बॉल, हु इज वन ऑफ द हिस्टोरियंस हु हैव रिटन अ लॉट अबाउट the uprisings, he has written that panchayats were a nightly occurrence, मतलब पंचायत रेगुलरली होते थे, which means जो भी कॉमन डिसीजंस हैं, ठीक है, दैट वर टेकन इन द पंचायत ओनली. जो भी कॉमन डिसीजंस होते थे वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ पंचायत में ही लिए जाते थे, ठीक है. सो दिस वाज व्हाट द केस वाज. ऑलराइट, नाउ so this obviously tells us that how well planned the mutiny was, because there was communication, because people were communicating with each other through letters, through telegraph, through panchayats, but it was obviously very well planned. Okay? Now, one thing obviously, whenever you're fighting the Britishers, ठीक है, अगर आप Britishers से लड़ रहे हैं, so obviously what you need is leadership and organization, fine. And the rebel leaders turned to those who had been leaders before the British conquest, ठीक है. तो British conquest से पहले जो हमारे leaders रहे हैं, okay, for example बहादुर शाह जफर, झांसी की रानी, लक्ष्मी बेगम हजरत महल, ruler of Awadh, they've turned to all these people, okay, because they wanted some leadership and some organization, fine. Now, one of the first acts of the sepoys of Meerut, as we saw, was to rush to Delhi and appeal to the old Mughal emperor to accept the leadership of the revolt. ठीक है? The acceptance of leadership obviously took some time to come. Bahadur Shah's first reaction was horror and rejection, but when people moved to the Mughal court in the Red Fort and defied the normal etiquettes, the old emperor realized that he had very few options. ठीक है? तो सबसे पहले जो ब्रिटिश, सबसे पहले जो सीपॉइज हैं, ये कहाँ गए? They went to Bahadur Shah Zafar, all right, because obviously he has been Mughals have been ruling before the Britishers came in. ठीक है, even though Bahadur Shah Zafar had no power, he was old, he was not fit to be a leader, but हाँ, क्योंकि वो कहते हैं ना, मुगल्स हमेशा से लीडर रहे हैं, हमेशा से राज रहा है उनका, तो लोगों को लगा कि सबसे पहले अगर किसी के पास जाना चाहिए हमें, तो वो बहादुर शाह जफर के पास ही है, बिकॉज इवन दो ही माइट नॉट बी अ लीडर मटीरियल, ही स्टिल अ मुगल. इतना भरोसा था लोगों को मुगलों के ऊपर कि कुछ भी हो जाएगा, साथ तो देंगे ही देंगे, ठीक है. सो बहादुर शाह जफर ऑब्वियसली डिड नॉट एक्सेप्ट इन वन गो, बिकॉज ही वॉज ओल्ड, ही वॉज नॉट अ लीडरशिप मटीरियल, ही वॉज जस्ट कन्फाइंड टू रेड फोर्ट, ही डिड नॉट हैव मनी, नथिंग एट ऑल, ठीक है. सो ही वॉज रियली स्कैर्ड व्हेन पीपल स्टार्टेड सेइंग कि आपको रिवोल्ट के लिए वो करना है, जो भी आपको अपना, यू हैव टू टेक द लीडरशिप. दैट वाज समथिंग ही डिड नॉट एक्सेप्ट, ठीक है. बट व्हेन पीपल डिफाइड द नॉर्मल कोर्ट एटिकेट्स व्हिच दे हैव फॉलोड फॉर सेंचुरीज, ठीक है, तो ओल्ड एम्पर को जो है, ही रियलाइज दैट देयर इज नथिंग, नॉट मच ऑप्शन लेफ्ट, एंड ही माइट हैव टू जस्ट अग्री टू व्हाट दीज पीपल आर सेइंग, ओके. एंड सिमिलर सीन्स वर enacted elsewhere. So in Kanpur, people of the town gave Nana Sahib, the successor of Peshwa Bajirao II, no choice but to join the revolt as the leader. Rani Jhansi was forced by popular pressure around her to assume the leadership. ठीक है. So was Kunwar Singh, a local zamindar in Bihar. All right. मैं आप एक चीज़ नोटिस करोगे इसमें कि जितने भी leaders हैं, okay, दो इनको दिखाया जाता है today in popular literature that they joined the revolt because they wanted to fight for their nation, but actually that was not the case. इन्होंने revolt सिर्फ इसलिए join की because the people demanded them to do so. Otherwise ये अपनी ज़िंदगी में बहुत खुश थे. There was nothing they really wanted to do. Like Rani Lakshmi Bai also, she joined the rebellion only when they annexed Jhansi. ठीक है, जब उन्होंने झांसी को एनेक्स कर लिया था, इट वॉज ओनली देन दैट शी जॉइन द रिबेलियन एंड शी वॉज फोर्स्ड टू मूव आउट ऑफ अ पैलेस. Okay, it was then she joined the rebellion. Otherwise she was living very happily. So all these जो भी leadership है, it does not come willingly. It is, it's been forced. But yes, I would commend them that they took the leadership and took it to and left no stone unturned after they had taken the leadership. ठीक है. So in Awadh, the displacement of Nawab Wajid Ali Shah and the annexation of the state was still very fresh in the mind of the people, ठीक है? And that is why people wanted to revolt as much as possible, and they started asking for leadership, which they got in the form of Peshwa Bajirao, which they got in the form of Nana Sahib, Rani Lakshmi Bai, Kunwar Singh, all right? Now, the populace in Lucknow celebrated the fall of British rule by hailing Bujrus Qadir, the son of Nawab as their leader. ठीक है, तो मतलब they really wanted to go back to the old memories, they really wanted to go back to the old ways, जो पुरानी चीज़ें थी उनकी, पुराने तरीके से रहना, पुराने leaders के पास, they started going back to them. Alright, this is what has happened. So this is how the leadership of the uprising was chosen. If you have any doubts, anything you want to ask, you definitely can. ठीक है, आप उसको comment section में लिख सकते हो. If you want, आप उसको comment section में लिख दीजिएगा. आपको कोई भी question है, कोई भी part आपको नहीं समझ में आ रहा है, so then definitely I will get back to you. मैं आपके questions को definitely answer करूँगी. ठीक है, so please do that. Alright, now. Often the message of the rebellion was carried by ordinary men and women, and sometimes by religious men also. ठीक है, so in Meerut there were reports of a fakir. He came riding on an elephant and the sepoys were visiting him frequently. ठीक है, alright. So it was not, leadership was not just carried on by these rulers, by these kings and queens, but sometimes it was also carried on by ordinary men and women, alright, and sometimes religious men also. So एक report है from Meerut that a fakir, fakir is a person, obviously fakir है, पीर बाबा, वो आते हैं elephant पे ride करते हुए, and the sepoys frequently visit him. Alright, now in Lucknow after the annexation of Awadh, there were many religious leaders and self-styled prophets who preached the destruction of the British rule. ठीक है, तो मतलब सिर्फ सिर्फ और सिर्फ, it's not just about the leaders, it's not just about kings and queens. There are different people who are participating in the rebellion and, you know, feeding the people that the British rule has to end, alright, in their different ways, fine. So there were in Lucknow after the annexation of Awadh, बहुत सारे religious style leaders और self styled prophets आए थे, ठीक है, और उन्होंने, you know, they started preaching the destruction of British rule, okay. Elsewhere local leaders emerged, जैसे कि urging peasants and zamindars and tribals to join the revolt, ठीक है. The example है कि Shahmal, alright, Shahmal mobilized the villagers of Pargana Barod in Uttar Pradesh. Gunu, a tribal cultivator of Shingbum in Chota Nagpur Plateau, became the rebel leader of the coal tribals of the region. ठीक है, तो आप ये क्या देख रहे हो, छोटे छोटे लोग, you know, these small minorities also. Okay, a tribal leader, tribal cultivator of Shingbum, you know, एक village, मतलब उत्तर प्रदेश की एक परगना है जो बरौद, उसके लोगों को भी उन्होंने mobilize किया. Okay, so छोटे छोटे, you know, all those places were really small, they're actually a minority. They are also getting, you know, they are also getting urged to join the rebellion, मतलब उनको भी urge किया जा रहा है, and they are also doing it, वो भी कर रहे हैं, you know, they're also doing it, वो भी कर रहे हैं, they're not just being urged, but they're also joining the rebellion, which I think is a very commendable thing. Okay, so it was not just these people, these kings and queens, but it was also small leaders, zamindars, peasants, fakirs, religious people, and tribal leaders and small tribes and small minorities also who were joining the rebellion after being encouraged to do so. Now, rumors and prophecies played a very important role in the revolt of 1857. ठीक है, people have already been, लोग जो हैं वो उनके permanent settlements and the kind of revenue that they're collecting, the kind of revenue that the Britishers are collecting, they're already very sad and they're already very you know, बहुत ज़्यादा परेशान है इस बात से, ठीक है, बहुत ज़्यादा worked up है, they're already very worked up with all the kinds of, you know, money matters. Okay, it's not just the Britishers, it's also the money lenders, and the peasants are actually left with nothing. Okay, they're literally dying of hunger. So all of these things combined with some rumors and prophecies played a very important role in the revolt of 1857. ठीक है, तो हम सब जानते हैं कि इंडिया के लोगों के लिए, I think it's anywhere, not just for India, but particularly talking about India, that the religion is really important. Okay, and any harm comes to the religion, आज के यहाँ पे लोग बिल्कुल पागल हो जाते हैं, ठीक है, they start losing their heads, isn't it? मतलब लोगों को समझ नहीं आता है, आज भी होता है ये, ठीक है, it's still there. So imagine it would have definitely been there at that point of time. उस टाइम पे कितना बड़ा major issue रहा होगा that, you know, someone is trying to defile your religion. Okay, so rumors and prophecies regarding religion and a lot of other things started playing a very important role. Okay, so sepoys who had come to Delhi from Meerut told Bahadur Shah Zafar that the bullets which are coated with the cows of fats and pigs Okay, they were asked to bite into those cartridges, and obviously it was trying to corrupt their caste and religion. Okay, this was the cartridge of Enfield rifles which were just being given to them. All right, and we all know that cows are sacred for us, and pigs जो होते हैं वो मुसलमानों के लिए हराम होता है. ठीक है, it's not something to be done, it's not something to be eaten, so that is why they were against biting those cartridges. ठीक है. Now, there's one rumor which can be traced, alright. So, Captain Wright, he was the commandant of the Rifle Instruction Depot. ठीक है, Rifle Instruction Depot in the sense कोई भी नया rifle आता है, so the sepoys would be trained in how to use that. ठीक है, so Captain Wright जो है वो वहाँ के head है, he is the head instructor, he is the commandant there. ठीक है, and he reported in a magazine called Dum Dum. Okay, this is magazine. उसने उन्होंने एक incident note किया. ठीक है, that in January 1857, a low-class Khalasi is a person who cleans the place. Okay, जनरली आपने देखा होगा बसेस में खलासी होते हैं. खलासी वो होते हैं जो बेसिकली बस की साफ सफाई करते हैं. ओके, तो उसने बेसिकली एक ब्राह्मण सिपाही से बोला कि मुझे अपने लोटे में से पानी दे दो. ठीक है, गिव मी सम वाटर. ऑलराइट, सिपाही जो है, जो ब्राह्मण सिपाही, उसने रिफ्यूज़ किया ये बोलते हुए कि तुम अगर मेरे लोटे को छुओगे तो ऑब्वियसली मेरा कास्ट जो है वो डिफाइल हो जाएगा, आई विल नो लॉन्गर बी अ ब्राह्मण. ठीक है, ऑलराइट. जो खलासी है उसने रिटॉर्ट किया ये कहते हुए कि यू विल एनी वे लूज योर कास्ट बिकॉज यू गोइंग टू बाइट इनटू द कार्ट्रिजेस विच हैव बीन कवर्ड विद द फैट ऑफ काउज एंड पिग्स. Okay, so this was considered as a rumor, this was considered as a plan which the Britishers have hatched. It was part of a big conspiracy that the it was part of a big conspiracy which the Britishers have hatched. ठीक है, and it was just their way of converting or destroying the caste and religion of Hindus and Muslims. ठीक है. Alright, apart from this there were other rumors that bone dust has been mixed. Okay, bone dust of cows and pigs have been mixed in the flour आटे में और जो मार्केट में बिक रही है. ठीक है, ताकि वो ऑब्वियसली जब उसको लोग कंज्यूम करेंगे तो उनका कास्ट अपने आप ही डिफाइल हो जाएगा. ठीक है, सो टाउन्स में, कंटोनमेंट्स में सिपॉयज और कॉमन लोगों ने ऑब्वियसली दे रिफ्यूज टू इवन टच द आटा. ठीक है, there was this fear that the Britishers were trying to convert Indians into Christianity. अगर obviously when they, their caste will be defiled, उनका religion defile हो जाएगा तो उनको कहीं ना कहीं तो जाना पड़ेगा. ठीक है, alright. So this was the belief, this was what they thought. Okay, now the response to call for action was reinforced by the prophecy that British rule would come to an end on the centenary, which is the century of the Battle of Plassey, 23rd June 1857. ठीक है, तो एक prophecy थी, एक rumor भी था, ये कह सकते हैं कि British rule जो है वो 100 साल में ख़त्म हो जाएगा. ठीक है, और 100 साल Battle of Plassey, when they actually become leaders, when they actually become rulers of India, was happening on 23rd June 1857. Okay, तो इसीलिए उनको लगा कि बस अब यही एक ये एक डेट है, इस दिन इनका राज खत्म हो जाएगा तो हमें तो रिवोल्ट करना ही करना है. ठीक है, आई होप यू गाइज आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग. इफ यू हैव एनी डाउट्स एट एनी पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम गाइज, प्लीज़ फील फ्री टू आस्क. ऑलराइट, आपको कहीं भी लगे आपको नहीं समझ आ रहा है तो आप ज़रूर पूछिएगा. ओके, now reports from various parts of North India came that chapatis were being distributed from village to village. ठीक है, एक आता था इंसान, एक चपातीज इन रोटी. ठीक है, वो एक वॉचमैन ऑफ द विलेज को वो चपाती दे के जाता था और बोलता था इसके 5 और बना करके पूरे नेक्स्ट विलेज में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर दो. ओके, इसका कोई मीनिंग अभी तक क्लियर नहीं है, बट शायद सम पीपल ड्रॉ द कंक्लूजन दैट इट वाज यूज्ड फॉर पासिंग ऑन सम मैसेजेस. ओके, इट वॉज यूज टू पासिंग ऑन मैसेजेस. सो दे वुड रोटी बेल करके उसके अंदर ही मैसेज डाल दिया करते थे, एंड ही वुड मेक 5 more copies and pass it on to the next village. So it was just a way of passing on messages so that no one, किसी को शक नहीं होगा और इस तरीके से मैसेजेस भी पास ऑन हो जाएंगे. Alright, so these were some of the prophecies, these were some of the rumors which instigated the people. काफ़ी ज़्यादा instigate किया लोगों को कि वो ऐसी चीज़ें फॉलो करें. ठीक है, ऐसी चीज़ें इन द सेंस इन चीज़ों में बिलीव करें, एंड फाइनली इट लेड टू द रिवोल्ट ऑफ 1857. okay? But obviously now rumors don't just work empty handed, ठीक है? एक तरफ से rumors काम नहीं कर सकती. Rumors can only work when people start believing in those rumors, all right? ठीक है? And people will only believe in those rumors when those rumors reflect their fear, their apprehensions, their faith and their conviction. ओके और बहुत सारे ऐसे रूमर्स थे which resonated, which actually gave us a glimpse into the deeper fears and suspicions of the people. Okay, the first I think was the fact that they're going to lose their caste and their religion. वो एक बहुत important था, बहुत important fear था उनका, बहुत important apprehension था, which obviously resonated with all the Enfield rifles and all the जो भी जितने भी rumors आए थे उस वजह से, ठीक है? All right, now so the rumors in 1857 begin to make sense when seen in the context of the policies the British pursued in the late 1820s. ठीक है? तो जो policies Britishers ने pursue किए थे in the late 1820s, let's see what policies were there. All right. So Governor General William Benedict, ठीक है, he thought that British policies would be adopted and to reform the Indian society, ठीक है? And how were they going to reform the Indian society? Through Western education, Western ideas and Western institution, ठीक है? तो आप यहाँ पे क्या कर रहे हो? जो भी Indian चीज़ें हैं which people have been living with for centuries, मतलब जब से उन्होंने अपनी ज़िंदगी देखी तब से वो इन्हीं चीज़ों के साथ रह रहे हैं, वेस्टर्न, नॉट विद वेस्टर्न एजुकेशन, वेस्टर्न आइडियाज़, ठीक है? बट व्हाट आर यू डूइंग? यू आर रिप्लेसिंग देम. आप वो सब कुछ रिप्लेस कर दे रहे हो विथ योर ओन आइडियाज़, ठीक है? एंड कुछ इंडियन कॉपरेशन के इंडियंस के इंडियन सोसाइटी के कॉपरेशन के थ्रू ये चीज़ें सेटअप की गई. सो इंग्लिश मीडियम स्कूल्स, कॉलेजेस, यूनिवर्सिटीज़ वो सेटअप जहाँ पे लिबरल आर्ट्स और साइंसेस ये सारी चीज़ें पढ़ाई जाने लगी. ऑल राइट, सो ऑल दीज थिंग्स वर थॉट टू बी एंटी इंडियन, ऑल दीज थिंग्स वर थॉट टू बी एंटी रिलीजन, ठीक है? एंड दैट इज़ वाई पीपल डिड नॉट लाइक द चेंज. उनको ये चेंज बिल्कुल भी पसंद नहीं आया ना. और उसके बाद द ब्रिटिशर्स स्टार्टेड meddling in the affairs of in affairs in the sense they abolished sati, ठीक है? They started permitting widow remarriage, okay? Even though these were good things and obviously Indians will realize it later कि ये चीज़ें तो अच्छी हुई थी, but at that point of time it was seen as that they were meddling in the affairs, especially the religious affairs. ऑल राइट. और हिंदुस्तान के लोग आप जानते हो कि रिलीजन के नाम पे तो उनको बहुत प्रॉब्लम होने लग जाती है, ठीक है? दे रियली डोंट लाइक एनीवन इंटरफेयरिंग इन द रिलीजियस अफेयर्स एंड एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम तो बहुत बड़ी चीज़ थी, ठीक है? ऑल राइट. सो ऑन वैरायटी ऑफ प्लीज जैसे कि मिस गवर्नेंस, रिफ्यूजल टू रिकग्नाइज अडॉप्शन, उन्होंने ना सिर्फ अवध को एक्सेस किया, एनेक्स किया, बट झांसी को भी, सतारा को भी. नाउ दिस रिफ्यूजल टू एक्सेप्ट अडॉप्शन, नाउ व्हाई डू यू थिंक दिस वाज सच अ ह्यूज डील? सी इन इंडियन मिथोलॉजी अगर आप देख लो, हिंदू मिथोलॉजी और एनी such mythology for that matter or Indian culture, adoption has always been there, ठीक है? adoption हमेशा से ही रहा है. adoption has always been a part of Indian culture, ठीक है? कृष्ण ने यशोदा और कृष्ण की आप कहानी ले लो, ठीक है? they are sort of adopted, ठीक है? सो अडॉप्शन हैज़ ऑलवेज बिन देयर, ऑल राइट. मतलब हमेशा ही अगर किंग्स और क्वींस के बच्चे नहीं होते थे तो वो अडॉप्ट ही करते थे, ठीक है? एंड सडनली यू समवन हु इज कमिंग एंड सेइंग कि नहीं हम अडॉप्शन रिकग्नाइज नहीं करेंगे. सो यू आर एक्चुअली गोइंग अगेंस्ट थाउजेंड्स ऑफ ईयर्स ऑफ आवर कल्चर, isn't it? आप हमारे thousands of years of culture के against जा रहे हैं. Just a piece of information actually. So gays and lesbians actually also ये जो इसको criminalize किया गया था, okay? The LGBTQ, it was actually done by the Britishers only. India में कभी भी ये चीज़ criminalize नहीं थी. India में it was never seen as a taboo. Okay? कभी भी इस चीज़ को टैबू की तरह नहीं देखा जाता था. So yes, that was something that was done by the Britishers only. ठीक है? Now, once these territories were annexed, एक बार जब ये territories annex हो गई, British started introducing their own system of administration, their own laws, their own methods, अपना land revenue collection, all right. Now the point is now they had these, the system of administration, their laws and their methods of revenue collection. अगर ये पुराने वाले से better होते, then people might have accepted them with open arms. Okay, but that was not the case. ठीक है. It felt like that these people, the Britishers, are trying to destroy everything that the people have held sacred, their practices, their kings, their social religious patterns, land holding, सब कुछ replace कर दिया है with something which is impersonal, alien, and the worst part, it's very oppressive. Okay, it's not something beneficial, it's not something जो उनको समझ में आ रहा है. They've destroyed everything which they held dear to them, and at the same time it's not something which is benefiting them. उनको इस चीज़ का कोई benefit नहीं हो रहा है. Alright, it is something which is not benefiting them at all. In fact उनको नुकसान ही नुकसान हो रहा है. ठीक है, 30 से 70% अगर आप रेवेन्यू कर दोगे तो किसी को भी नुकसान होगा, है कि नहीं? Alright, so this is what was happening, and then this perception was much more aggravated by Christian missionaries. और ये रूमर और भी ज़्यादा फैल गया कि ब्रिटिशर्स जो हैं वो हमें कन्वर्ट करना चाहते हैं. Alright, they want to convert us into Christianity. Alright, so this was something that was there. Alright, so all these rumors basically impinged, all these rumors basically represented the apprehension, the fear of the people. बहुत ज़्यादा represent कर रहा था, ठीक है. And this is the reason that people started believing in these rumors and people started acting towards these rumors. Alright, so I hope यहाँ तक आप सबको समझ में आ गया है. Is there anything you did not understand? You can always tell me. आपको कुछ भी नहीं समझ में आ रहा हो guys, तो please बताइएगा. Please do drop a question in the comment section if you don't understand something. मैं उसको next class, next session में I'll take it up for sure. Okay, so please do let me know if you didn't understand something. अगर कुछ भी आपको नहीं समझ में आया हो तो प्लीज़ आप comment section में question डाल दीजिएगा, और whichever you feel okay, you can always मेरे को भी आप text कर सकते हैं, बता सकते हैं कि आपको क्या नहीं समझ आया. Okay, so now let us talk about Awadh in revolt. ठीक है, अवध में actually क्या हुआ? Okay, now why was Awadh so important? Why was the Subsidiary Alliance so important? What happened in Awadh actually which made it like a hub for the rebellion? ठीक है, rebellion actually जो है वो शुरुआत उसकी वहीं से हुई थी. Okay, all right. So in 1857, Governor General Lord Dalhousie said that Awadh is like a cherry that will drop into a mouth one day. Okay, and 5 years later, in 1856, Awadh was formally annexed to the British Empire. This was because of the Subsidiary Alliance. Okay, before I explain you this, let me explain what Subsidiary Alliance actually is. Okay, so now this was something which was devised by Lord Wellesley in 1798. Okay, now all those who entered into such an alliance with the Britishers, उनको कुछ terms and conditions accept करने पड़ते थे. ठीक है, first of all, now it was the Britishers who would be responsible for protecting their ally from external and internal threats to their power. Okay, so who would be the ally? The king would be the ally who has accepted the Subsidiary Alliance. ठीक है, and now the Britishers would be responsible for protecting the kings and queens from any external and internal threats to power. ठीक है, तो कोई भी external उनको attack करेगा या internally उनको परेशान करेगा, so Britishers would be responsible for tackling that. ठीक है, all right. So in the territory of the ally, a British armed contingent would be stationed. Fine. So obviously if they have to protect them from external and internal threats, they have to have a British armed contingent. ठीक है, so that would be stationed in the allies territory. ठीक है, all right. Now the ally would have to provide resources for the maintaining of this contingent. ठीक है, all right. And the ally could not enter. ठीक है, the ally could enter into agreements with rulers or engage in warfare only with the permission of the Britishers. ठीक है, तो अगर आपको कोई agreement sign करना है किसी और के साथ, किसी treaty को sign करना है, किसी ruler के साथ engage करना है warfare में, you can only do it with the permission of the Britishers. Okay, all this seems very nice. बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है ना देख करके कि कितना अच्छा है, कितना easy है, कितना easy हो जाता होगा government के लिए, कितना easy हो जाता होगा राजा के लिए. ठीक है, let us look at the flip side. Let's try to understand this, that how it actually led to the destruction of places like Awadh. Okay, so देखो, if what is happening here, if the Britishers are responsible for protecting their ally from external and internal threats to power, ठीक है, so obviously the army of जो उसकी आर्मी है, ठीक है, जो एक्चुअली किंग की आर्मी है, दैट आर्मी हैज़ नो रोल हियर. ठीक है, उसका कोई रोल नहीं है. दैट आर्मी इज इन फैक्ट डिसबैंडेड. ओके, वो आर्मी डिसबैंड कर दी गई है एंड द ब्रिटिशर्स आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर प्रोटेक्टिंग द एलाई, ठीक है। तो जो इंटरनल एंड एक्सटर्नल मैटर्स हैं, ओके, विच शुड एक्चुअली बी इन द हैंड्स ऑफ द किंग, दैट हैज बीन टेकन ओवर बाय द ब्रिटिशर्स. If I want to sign a treaty which might be good for my, जो मेरे उसके लिए अच्छा हो सकता है, मेरे अपने कंट्री के, मेरे टेरिटरी के लिए अच्छा हो सकता है, I will not be allowed to do that by the Britishers because obviously they want to cripple my territory so that they can take it over, okay. And they have there's a British armed contingent stationed, okay, so they are definitely taking care of the external and internal threats, but they're also taking care that the king does not revolt against them, ठीक है. king को cripple कर दिया गया है यहाँ पे because king के रूल के ना कुछ पायदान होते हैं, कुछ पिलर्स होते हैं, ठीक है. सो इकोनॉमी, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर, आर्मी इज वन ऑफ द पिलर्स एंड दे हैव रियली टेकन ओवर दैट वन पिलर, ठीक है. उन्होंने एक पिलर जो है उसको अपने ऊपर ले लिया है. सो ऑब्वियसली द थ्रोन हैज बीन टॉपल्ड. थ्रोन जो है वो एक तरफ इस तरीके से बैठ गया है, ठीक है. And obviously they are providing all sorts of resources which obviously would have been really expensive, ठीक है. एक्सपेंसिव है, ओके, बट यहाँ पे देखो एक्सपेंसिव है तो अब कहाँ से अब जब एक्सपेंसेस हैं तो उसको कहाँ से मीट किया जाएगा? Where will that expenses be taken care by? Alright, so obviously from the revenue, ठीक है, which is coming from the people. But how do you think they'll collect the revenue when their army has been disbanded? Okay, because army plays a very important role in revenue collection because not everyone might be willing to pay the revenue. तो कुछ लोगों से revenue literally छीनना पड़ता है, okay, and army actually plays a very important role in revenue collection. but जब revenue collection के लिए army ही नहीं है तो revenue आएगा कहाँ से? जब revenue नहीं आएगा, how will you maintain the armed contingent, isn't it, when you have no source of income? Fine, and you're not allowed to engage in any warfare or any kind of treaty which might be good for you. तो आप सोचो कितना आपको basically you are not free to decide on anything, okay, neither your internal matters, neither your external matters, everything is indirectly in the hands of the Britishers, okay. So let us see how this was imposed on Awadh and how it finally got annexed, okay. So by the terms of the Subsidiary Alliance, ठीक है, उसके according, okay, so by the terms of the Subsidiary Alliance, which was imposed on Awadh in 1801, Nawab had to disband his military, ठीक है. All right, नवाब को अपनी मिलिट्री जो डिसबैंड करनी पड़ी, उसको हटाना पड़ा, ठीक है, और ब्रिटिश ट्रूप्स को अलाउ करना पड़ा कि वो उनके किंगडम में आके रहें, ठीक है. And obviously the king had to act in accordance with the advice of the British resident who was now attached to the court, okay. So all the decisions that were taking place, all the decisions that were being taken by the king was on the advice of the British resident, ठीक है. तो British resident obviously king के फेवर में तो कोई एडवाइस देगा नहीं, ठीक है. वो तो ऐसी एडवाइस देगा ना जो वो खुद जिससे उसको खुद फायदा हो, ठीक है. समथिंग विच विल बी गुड फॉर द ब्रिटिशर्स, नॉट ऑब्वियसली फॉर द किंग, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली उनका एम यही है कि वो उसको डिसबैंड कर सके, वो उसको कैप्चर कर सके, उसको एनेक्स कर सके, ठीक है. सो ऑल द एक्सटर्नल इंटरनल डिसीजंस वर टेकन ऑन द एडवाइस ऑफ द ब्रिटिशर्स. आई डोंट नो, समवनस कुकिंग समथिंग, इट्स स्मेलिंग सो बैड. Sorry. Okay, just a minute, guys. Okay. So कहाँ थे हम? हाँ, so he was supposed to act according to the advice of the British resident. तो वो जो बोलेगा उसके अकॉर्डिंग ही चीज़ें होंगी. सो ऑब्वियसली ही इज़ नॉट गोइंग टू वर्क इन द फेवर ऑफ द in favor of the territory, in favor of the kingdom or in favor of the king. He is definitely going to work in his own favor, है ना. वो इस फेवर में काम करेगा कि इतने कमज़ोर कर दो इनको कि फाइनली उनको ब्रिटिशर्स एनेक्स कर ही ले, मतलब कोई ना कोई रीज़न दे करके फाइनली इट कैन बी एनेक्स्ड, ओके. Alright, so deprived of his armed forces, Nawab was increasingly dependent on the Britishers to maintain law and order and also to control, also to collect revenue, ठीक है. or because he had no longer, because he obviously did not have his army, he could no longer assert his control over these rebellious chiefs and तालुकदार्स. ठीक है, उनके ऊपर भी उसका कोई कंट्रोल नहीं था. And these chiefs and तालुकदार्स, they are actually responsible for the revenue collection. ठीक है, तो अब इनके ऊपर भी कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है. ऑलराइट, सो यू आर बेसिकली सीइंग कि जो all those pillars which are supporting the territory, which are supporting the kingdom, are one by one being taken away by the Britishers. ठीक है, so these are like control rods in a nuclear reactor होता है जैसे. ठीक है, when you take off the control rods, obviously the reactivity increases. ठीक है, तो reactivity अगर बहुत ज़्यादा increase करेगा, so it's bound to have a nuclear disaster like the one that happened in Chernobyl. Okay, so this is what is happening here. So धीरे धीरे करके एक control rod जो है वो king से ले लिया जा रहा है. So obviously when you've taken all the control rods, how is the king going to control anything? ठीक है, and when the king does not have anything in control, he is bound to react, he's bound to agree to what the Britishers are saying. Okay, that is bound to happen. Fine. Now, in the meantime, Britishers were increasingly getting interested in acquiring the territory of Awadh. Now, there were two reasons for that. Okay? They felt that the soil was really good for producing indigo and cotton. Okay? And it was located in the upper principal region of India, and it could be converted into a very good market. ठीक है, बहुत अच्छा मार्केट बन सकता था. So soil was really good for producing indigo and cotton, which could obviously be sold off. ठीक है, so these are cash crops. Okay, and it could principally be converted into the market for upper India. ठीक है. And by the early 1850s, moreover, major areas like Punjab, Karnataka, Doab, the Maratha lands, Bengal, all have been conquered, and Awadh was the only one remaining. ठीक है, so एक बार Awadh takeover हो गया, it was expected to complete the process of territorial annexation which had begun with Bengal. All right, तो जो territorial annexation Bengal के साथ शुरू हुआ था, it would have been completed with Awadh, and finally it was annexed in 1856. Okay. Is there any doubt, anything you did not understand? Please do let me know, guys. आपको कुछ भी अगर नहीं समझ में आ रहा हो तो प्लीज़ ज़रूर बताइएगा, so that I can help you with it. मैं आपकी हेल्प कर सकूँ इसमें. प्लीज़ कुछ भी क्वेश्चन होगा, do put it in the comment section. I will definitely get back to you, whatever questions you have about that. Okay. Now, life has gone out of the body. Okay. Lord Dalhousie ने, when he had annexed these kingdoms, okay, so it created dissatisfaction in all the areas and principalities. All right, but it was obviously much more in Awadh. Okay, so Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, he was dethroned, उनको उनके throne से हटा दिया गया, and he was now being exiled to Calcutta on the pleas that the region was being misgoverned. Okay, but the Britishers were wrong to assume that Wajid Ali Shah was unpopular ruler. In fact, he was widely loved. ठीक है, when he was leaving for Kanpur, there were a lot of people who followed him all the way to Kanpur singing songs of lament. मतलब वो दुख में गाते हुए चले जा रहे थे उसके साथ. Okay, ताकि उनके साथ गाते हुए चले जा रहे थे. All right, so they have songs like that life has gone off the body of this town is left lifeless. मतलब body life कौन है? Okay, life is basically Wajid Ali Shah. All right, so he was actually a very popular ruler. Okay, so people did not take it lightly. लोगों ने उस चीज़ को lightly नहीं लिया. लोगों ने उस चीज़ को obviously बहुत अच्छे stride में तो नहीं लिया होगा ना, that the ruler is being disbanded, the ruler is being dethroned, and he's being exiled. All right, someone who's ruled them for over centuries, जिनकी family ने जिन्होंने उनको rule किया है. ठीक है, so there was this folk song that was sung that अंग्रेज बहादुर आइन और मुल्क ले लीन हो. मतलब अंग्रेज आए और उन्होंने हमसे हमारा मुल्क, हमारा देश, हमारी कंट्री को हमसे छीन लिया. ठीक है, all right, and obviously there was emotional loss. All right, but at the same time there was material loss. What do you mean by material loss? The removal of Nawab also meant the dissolution of his court. All right, and in court a wide range of people, musicians, dancers, poets, artisans, retainers, administrative, all these people who have been employed, who had a steady flow of income from there, had now lost their livelihood. ठीक है, इतने सारे लोगों की नौकरी चली गई, इतने सारे लोगों की आमदनी चली गई. सो हाउ वर दे सपोज टू अर्न? All right, so not only were they sad because the king was no longer there with them, but they were also sad because they have lost their livelihood. उनके पास अब पैसे कमाने का कोई जरिया नहीं था. Okay, now let us look at all the facts at how, all right, a chain of grievances, a chain of things linked Awadh, Talukdar, peasant and the sepoy. All right, and how together they would fight in the first war of independence. ये सब एक साथ कैसे लड़ेंगे. Okay, so let us see how the Talukdars were affected. Then we'll see how they were connected to the peasants, and then we'll see how they were connected to the sepoys. All right, and finally how all of these were connected to the Awadh prince. All right, Awadh ruler. Fine. And how all of these people, just because one ruler was disbanded, one ruler was dethroned, how it affected them all, and how they finally decided to be a part of the rebellion. Okay, now, so annexation, when the annexation of Awadh took place, it did not just replace the Nawab, but it also dispossessed the Talukdars of the region. Okay, who are the Talukdars? Talukdars are basically like zamindars who have been collecting the revenue for centuries. Okay. Okay, so the countryside of Awadh, in the sense the village side of Awadh, there were it was dotted with the estates, in the sense there were lands and lands and lands and forts of these talukdars. Okay, so the talukdars had their own forts and they had huge lands under them, and for many generations they have controlled land and power in the countryside. ठीक है, तो मतलब सदियों से एक तरीके से लैंड और पावर जो है कंट्री साइड में वो उनके ही कंट्रोल में रहा है. Okay, now, so before the Britishers came in, just like the zamindars, the Talukdars also had armed retainers. They would build forts. They had a degree of autonomy. All right, and but in return for the autonomy that was given to them, they were supposed to accept the king as their lord, and they had to pay the revenue on time. Okay. So this was the kind of relationship that was there between the Nawab and the Talukdar. Okay? Talukdar was left free. He was given a lot of degree of autonomy, and in return he had to accept the suzerainty, he had to accept the lordship of the king, and also pay the revenue on time. Okay? This was the kind of relationship between. Okay? Now some of the Talukdars had as many as 12,000 foot soldiers, and even the smaller ones around 2,000. Okay? ठीक है, और जो ब्रिटिशर्स थे ऑब्वियसली उनको वो तालुकदार्स के पावर्स को बिल्कुल भी टॉलरेट नहीं करना चाहते थे, बिकॉज दे थॉट दैट दे पावरफुल, यू नो, दीज पीपल आर मच मोर पावरफुल देन अस. Okay, so immediately after the annexation, the Talukdars were disarmed, in the sense उनकी आर्मी उनसे छीन ली गई, उनके फोर्ट्स डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिए गए. Okay, और ब्रिटिश लैंड रेवेन्यू पॉलिसी जो था, इट अंडरमाइन देयर पोजिशन. ठीक है, अंडरमाइन देयर पोजिशन इन द सेंस देयर पोजिशन एज यू नो, बिकॉज दे हैड अ लॉट ऑफ पावर एंड दे हैड लॉट ऑफ लैंड्स, ऑल दैट वाज डिसबैंडेड. ठीक है, तो उनकी जो पोजिशन थी in the countryside, that how they were collecting taxes, how they were the head of the land, and उनकी जो authority थी वो सब basically it all of that was changed now. ठीक है, all of that changed and all of that was no longer a part. Okay, Britishers came up with this thing called the summary settlement. ठीक है, and it was based on the assumption that Talukdars had no permanent stake on the land. All right, in the sense that Talukdars जो है इन्होंने land बस छीनी है लोगों से. ठीक है, इनके पास कोई परमानेंट स्टेक नहीं है, इन द सेंस दे हैव नॉट बॉट द लैंड. फाइन, एंड उन्होंने लैंड पे जो है वो होल्ड फ्रॉड और फोर्स से कर रखा है. Okay, and they thought that if we remove the Talukdars, okay, then they would be able to settle the revenue rates directly with the owners of the land, who they thought were the peasants. ठीक है, all right, which was actually not the case. Okay, so pre-British time, Talukdars held about 67% of the villages, which had now come down to 38%. ठीक है, so the Talukdars in Awadh were worst hit. कुछ लोगों ने they lost more than half of the number of villages which were previously under their control. Okay, so they are also losing their revenue base, isn't it? They would collect a revenue, but they would pay a part of the revenue to the king, and part of it they would keep for themselves. It was a source of their income. ठीक है, so 67 to 38% अगर हम आ गए तो बाकी जो बच गए वो कहाँ जाएंगे? Isn't it? They have been worst hit. उनकी इकोनॉमी, उनका रेवेन्यू बेस, उनका पैसे कमाने का जरिया, सब कुछ, everything has been destroyed. Okay, And this I already told you, that Britishers thought that by removing the talukdars, they would be able to settle the revenue with the actual owners of the soil, and they would also be able to reduce the level of exploitation. ठीक है? Alright, but that was obviously the case. This was actually not the case. ये practice में हो ही नहीं पाया. ठीक है? Alright, revenue flows of the state increased. ठीक है? वो definitely increase हो गया, but the demand on the peasants also increased. It did not decline. ठीक है? And we have, the revenue demand increased in some places to 30 to 70%. ठीक है? क्योंकि ब्रिटिशर्स को लगा कि बस ये एक्चुअल ओनर्स ऑफ द सॉइल हैं, पेजेंट्स, ठीक है, तो इनसे अब हम कितना भी रेवेन्यू चार्ज कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? Imagine from 30 to 70%, if you're earning 100 rupees, you have to pay 70 rupees to the Britishers, or whoever is collecting the revenue. How will you survive in 30 rupees? You have to survive yourself. You have to buy seeds for the next season also. How are you supposed to do that? All right. So dispossession of the talukdars meant that the entire system was now broken down. Okay, entire system was now out of order. Okay. ठीक है, सब कुछ एक तरीके से डिसरप्ट हो गया था. ऑलराइट, और प्री ब्रिटिश टाइम में तालुकदार्स वर ओप्रेसर्स, बट मेनी ऑफ देम वर जनरस फादर फिगर्स ऑल्सो. ठीक है, दे डिड कलेक्ट अ लॉट ऑफ रेवेन्यू, अ लॉट ऑफ ड्यूज फ्रॉम द पेजेंट्स, बट दे वर देयर व्हेन दे नीडेड देम. Okay, they were there when they needed them. जब मान लो कभी crop failure हो जाता था, there was a drought or something, they were given loans. All right, and in times of festivities also, the talukdars would support them and give them money. Okay, and now under the Britishers, they were exposed to over assessment. ठीक है, from 30 to 70%. All right, and there's inflexible methods of collection. मतलब कुछ भी हो जाए. Alright, even if you're dying of hunger, you have to pay the revenue. आपको 70% revenue देना ही देना है. Alright, and at the top of that, there was no guarantee that in times of hardship, crop failure, drought, or anything like that, that the revenue collection would be reduced or collection would be postponed. ऐसा कुछ भी एक तरह से guarantee नहीं था. So whatever it is, even if you're dying, if there's an earthquake, if there's a flood, it did not matter. You have to collect the revenue. You have to pay the revenue. That was what the Britishers wanted. Alright, which was definitely not there in case of during the case when talukdars were there. Okay, so now in areas like Awadh, where resistance during 1857 was intense, lasting, fighting was carried on by talukdars and their peasants. ठीक है, और बहुत सारे जो तालुकदार थे वो mostly loyal to the Nawab of Awadh. Okay, and they were so loyal that they did not even shy away from fighting side by side a woman. Alright, so once the Nawab was dead, they even joined Begum Hazrat Mahal in Lucknow to fight the Britishers. Alright, and some even remained with her even after she was defeated. Even after her defeat, some of them remained with her. Alright, the grievances of the peasants was now able to reach the sepoy lines. Why? Because most of the sepoys who've been recruited in the British army actually came from the villages of Awadh. Okay? So yes, they were working as a sepoy, but their family were obviously peasants. Okay? So for decades, these sepoys have complained about low levels of payment, difficulty in getting leaves. Okay? But by 1850s, there were other reasons for discontent. Okay? Now, the relationship between the sepoys and the superior white officers had undergone a significant change. Okay? Earlier, there was these British officials made a point to maintain friendly relations. Okay, they would speak in the language. They would speak in the language of the people. They would familiar with the customs and the culture of the country. They would engage in leisure activities with them. सब कुछ करते थे. ठीक है? So they were disciplinarian at the same time, but they were father figure also. Okay, but this role began to change. So there was now they have developed the sense of racial superiority. Okay, and they started treating the sepoys as racial inferiors. Violence grew. Okay, marna, peetna, physical abuse, physical violence. Okay, so now trust which the sepoys had with the superior white officials was now replaced by suspicion, and this episode of greased cartridges was a major example of this. Alright, and we have to remember that most of the Bengal army was actually recruited from Awadh. Okay, so whatever was happening in Awadh, जो भी अवध में होता था, especially whatever happened with their families was now transmitted to the sepoy lines, isn't it? मतलब obviously वो अपनी family को देख रहे हैं ना, मरते हुए अपनी family को देख रहे हैं, झगड़ते हुए. They're seeing their family, even scavenge for little things, because there a lot of things are being paid in the form of revenue. Okay, so even if I'm far off, even if I'm far away, even if I'm doing a very good job, I would obviously be very unhappy with the government if my family is suffering because of the government policies, isn't it? So all of that got transferred into the sepoy lines, and this is how the talukdars, the peasants, and the sepoys were connected to each other, and it finally led to the revolt of 1857. This is what had happened. Alright, so is there any doubt, anything that you guys want to understand? You can please tell me. आपको अगर कुछ भी अभी नहीं समझ में आया हो तो आप बता सकते हैं. Alright, so I think I'll stop here. मैं यहाँ पे रुकूंगी, और what the rebels wanted और ये सारी हम आगे करेंगे. And I think ज़्यादा नहीं बचा है इस चैप्टर का. It's not a lot is left, so I think we'll be able to finish it in the next session. So I'll start with what the rebels wanted in the next session. Okay, is there anything that you guys want to understand? कुछ भी अगर आप पूछना चाहते हैं, you can put it in the comment section if you did not understand anything. कुछ भी कोई भी पार्ट अगर आपको नहीं समझ में आया हो तो please do let me know, so that I can work on it, so that I can explain it to you. Okay. And before I end the session, I would really want to tell you about the interesting things which are happening on Unacademy. So we have launched what is known as the iconic subscription. Okay, so iconic subscription, I think it is a very good time for you to take up iconic subscription right now, because आपकी पढ़ाई तो Unacademy पे होगी ही होगी, but at the same time you get a mentor, and that mentor will be able to guide you through a lot. आपको बहुत सारी चीज़ों में वो guide कर पाएंगे. Okay, so you get a personal mentor, you have live doubt solving sessions, you have weekly report, they're connected to your parents also, you get a study planner. Apart from that, you definitely get all the benefits of Plus subscription. Okay, so as far as upcoming batches are concerned, we have individual batches for science, commerce, and humanities. Okay, so let's crack final exams for class 11 science, commerce, and humanities, and shine batch for pre-boards for science, commerce, and humanities for class 12. Okay, and here I will be teaching you history on this platform for humanities. Here I will be teaching you history here. Okay, so please do take up your subscription so that you can join these. And very proud to announce that we will be launching a test series for subjective subjects very soon. So आप अपने subjective papers को भी access कर सकते हो. And we have 2 more batches. This is called Optionals Made Easy. Here I'll be teaching you psychology. So all your optional papers like psychology, computer science, mathematics practices, all this will be covered in detail. Okay, this is for class 11th also and for class 12th also. Apart from this, we have crash course batch for board exams commerce. Now in this it starts on the 23rd of November and it's end on the 14th of February. Now this is for 2 months, but it is actually a very good batch here. Why? Because आपको इसमें पूरा जो आपका syllabus है, okay, of commerce and science, it will be covered in 2 months time, because it's a crash course. ठीक है, तो crash course में बहुत अच्छे से आपका syllabus पूरा से cover कराया जाएगा वापस से. Okay, so we have a crash course batch for board exam, and we have prime batch for commerce final exams, and similar we have for science also. And if you want to take up your subscription, please use my code, which is Nicky Live. आप मेरा code use कर सकते हो. You can enter the code here. Alright, these are the months of subscription that will be taken. ठीक है, so we have 1 month subscription, we have 3 months, 6 months, 15 months, 18 and 24 months. So you can take your subscriptions. Alright, so I really look forward to seeing a lot of you in my courses, in the plus classes, because honestly speaking, that is the best thing you can get there. Best content, best notes, best live doubt solving sessions and everything, and this would be very good for your exam point of view. So thank you so much, and I really look forward to seeing a lot of you in the courses. All right, thank you, bye bye, good night. Sorry, not good night, but bye bye, take care, thank you. Also, I hope you all understood everything. If there's any doubt, anything you did not understand, please put up in the comment section and I will definitely get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, मैं जल्दी से जल्दी आपके questions को answer करने की कोशिश करूँगी और maybe we can take it up in the next class also. So thank you so much for joining in, guys. Thank you. It was a pleasure.